So oftentimes the first step towards transitioning a business is when a business asks the accountant, the owner says, hey, what's my business worth? Because they're starting to think about it. They want how much money they might get. Then after that, they'll go talk to their financial advisor and things like that. Well, we've talked already about that. The valuation is probably not where you should start. You should probably start looking at, what life's going to look like afterwards and kind of get a picture of that first so you don't fail at retirement. But the business valuation question itself is also a loaded one. You could get 4 answers and they could all kind of be right. What do you mean? Well, there are different types of valuations. The first thing I ask when someone says, hey, what's this business worth? I say, to who? Do you mean to the auctioneer who's going to auction it? To a third-party buyer out there on the market? To the son? To the key employee? Maybe the management who wants to purchase it? Or what about to an outside investor? What's it worth? They're all going to look to different things to determine the value of the business. And believe it or not, it's going to validly be worth different amounts to each of these different people because of the purpose. So we always want to know what the purpose of the valuation is, okay? There's also that liquidation value that is the auctioneer's value. It's probably going to be the lowest. It's going to be, well, what could you get if you just auctioned off the assets? Definitely going to get less for each part than you're going to get from the whole. On top of that, an investor is just going to invest in it who's not going to participate, who's just going to put their money up and maybe hire a CEO. There's going to be a different value that's going to be associated with that. There's not going to be those tangibles of being able to work in the business. There's not going to be that emotion of it's been in my family. Same thing when it comes down to the kids. What are the kids going to think about that business, okay? They're probably grown up with it. They see it as a part of their family. Maybe they see it as their birthright. And they're going to value that probably higher than some other folks are going to value because of the sentimental value. Then we look at maybe the key employees. The employees have worked in the business. They're attached to it as well. They like you. They have their idea of what it's worth, what they'd be willing to pay for it, but they don't consider it theirs yet. We usually value our assets larger than at a higher price than the market does. That's just the nature of who we are. You've been working in it. You maybe spent 30 years in it. That key employer manager may have spent 10. And you went through those struggles, okay, of starting it out when there was no money and things like that. And that affects in your mind what you would pay for it. That also affects in your mind what your children might pay for it because they probably shared in some of those struggles. Your key employee may not have. The investor certainly didn't. And absolutely that third-party buyer didn't, and neither did the auctioneer. So without those extra added things that do affect value, okay, because value is not just this dollar sign we can get up from this math calculation. Look behind those math calculations. There's always a subjective piece of what your opinion is and what you value. And that's really something you should totally look at when you're looking at the business value is. What purpose is this for? Is it to sell to a third party? Is it to give it to the kids? Is it to liquidate? Then you can start looking at how it's calculated and get to the best piece. So start with that. If you're thinking about your business valuation, you should probably have an idea of who you're going to sell it to. Because if you just go ask your accountant, you might get the book value. That may be what it's just worth for tax purposes after the depreciation thing are taken out. Or it may be a liquidation value. It takes some time. It takes usually some special expertise to give a appraisal or some kind of a guess for a business valuation for the other purposes. And so when you got that in mind, start thinking about, what your third act's going to look like, what things are going to be next. Then start thinking about who you might sell it to. Then you can get an idea of, hey, what this value is. And based on who you're going to sell it to, you'll know what to do to increase that value. The things that you're going to do to increase the value to an investor might actually decrease the value when it looks for a third-party buyer because they have different goals, different things they're looking for in the business. So you're going to have to reconcile those things. When you first ask for that valuation, think about who it's for, and then think it's a starting point. Because you shouldn't rush into these things. You probably should start asking about these things 5 to 7 years out from this actual sale so you have time to affect it and get the best price. The things you can do now to get your best price probably aren't things you can do in a month. Probably aren't things you can do even in a year. The best price is going to be done by that deliberate value creation, that value amplification until you get to that point where you're either got the max value in the business or the valuation that you want based on who you're going to sell it to and for what purpose.